Hey, what's going on YouTube? It's Pyromancer here, and welcome back to my channel. Hope you're having a wonderful day, morning, afternoon, evening, whatever time it is, wherever you are in the world. And thank you so much for joining me today. Today, we have a very exciting topic. We're going to talk about enemy infiltration. Preface: a Shadowlands book on a cosmos-wide deception, as written by Wowhead. So, Enemy Infiltration Preface is a book that was data mined from the Shadowlands. It's written by an anonymous spy working to topple the cosmic forces other than death. And people have been highly requesting me to cover this topic, and so today we will. But before we get started, I want you guys to like this video, because trust me, in a second, in a minute, maybe in a couple minutes, you're gonna like this video, okay? I promise you. Thank you guys to my patrons, those of you that have supported me and my channel here on YouTube. You guys are amazing. I'm getting your Q&A wrapped up probably today for the August Q&A. Guys, if you're new to my channel, please hit the subscribe button. It's like 60% of you are not subscribed. Help me get to 100K. We are 17,000 subs away. We're not that far. Help me get that silver YouTube play button. I can stick it on the wall and masturbate to it, okay? I need it. I need your help, all right? So let's get into it. Let's jump right into this book. This is at wowhead.com. I'll have the link in the description down below. And this is a book, basically. Talks about several different topics here. And one thing that people are saying is they think it's written by a dreadlord, okay? We're going to start with this. I'm going to read the last line, okay? Let me real zoom in on this. As ever, we shall serve as your unseen hand. We will poison every host foolish enough to invite us into their midst. I remain, as always, your faithful servant, okay? So we're just gonna solidify this right now. Unseen hand, okay? This is one of the Warcraft comics. This is the first comic in the series of 4 of the Ashbringer series, and this was brought to my attention by Ashura Wow. So thank you so much, Ashura. I appreciate that. When you dive into this comic, you'll find that actually, towards the latter part of the comic, you get to see some dialogue from a dreadlord. Now, this is Balnazar in this case. But what Balnazar says is very interesting. This is what Balnazar says. My kind are called Nathrazim, dreadlords in your tongue. Perhaps Thalkitun would be more fitting. It means unseen guest in our language. Fitting, because I've existed here between the world of the living and the dead, awaiting a moment such as this, under the very noses of the scourge without their slightest suspicion. So he calls himself, and the actual name of dreadlords, the dreadlords are called Nathrazim, or in their tongue, Thalkitun, which would be more fitting. It means unseen guest. So when you have a piece of dialogue here, not dialogue really, just this book, that calls them, we shall serve as your unseen hand. Yeah, I'm kind of thinking that it's a dreadlord, right? Like, it could be Mal'Ganis, I'm not sure, but I'm pretty fucking positive it's a dreadlord. So with that being said, we're gonna jump into it. This is what the book says. To our most wondrous and resplendent master, I am pleased to state that after a lengthy study of our rivals, I have completed my observations. Now I want to throw out there, rivals is an interesting term to use because rival does not necessarily mean enemy, okay? You can have rivals without wanting to kill them or completely eradicate them. It's just an interesting term to use. Please accept this briefing in advance of my complete report, which shall follow forthwith. Okay, now first of all, the language being used here already gives me like dreadlord vibes, right? Dreadlords are kind of those like dark, shady, super intelligent, like infiltrating demons, right? That basically seed into populations of people or places and communities, disguise themselves as other things. And they are, I kind of think of them as like, like if I could put a description on there, like old school, almost like gothic style vampire demon spies. Like they're highly intelligent, highly effective. This is what they're good at. In the language being used, which shall follow forthwith. Like that just reminds, I don't know, I guess in a formal manner, I could see a dreadlord speaking that way. We anticipate that certain of our targets will be more challenging to topple than others, but each is prone to manipulation in different ways. And our agents have already woven themselves into their very fabric. So again, this is a situation where this is kind of a description that fits exactly in with dreadlords, okay? This is, after all, the solemn duty for which you sired us. Interesting term. As you are fond of saying, once a desire is understood, it can be exploited. I really, really like this because I look at life as to desire. Like, what is life without some form of desire, right? And even if you seek not to desire, the desire to not desire is a desire in and of itself, right? So I really like this. Once a desire is understood, it can be exploited. Once you understand what it is that someone desires, it is much easier to exploit them in a meaningful way. And I do think that the Legion is exceptionally good at doing this. Oftentimes, what people desire, especially those whom the Legion targets, is power, right? Sometimes it's family, with like Ner'zhul, right? Kil'jaeden knew that Ner'zhul deeply missed his wife, and so he posed as her, and essentially manipulated his desire to see his wife once more, and basically was able to fool Ner'zhul by doing that. So this is a very Legion-esque thing to say, in my opinion. But going back here, this is, after all, the solemn duty for which you sired us. So the reason for which you created us is to weave into the fabric of societies and bring about their downfall. Enough prologue. Allow me to summarize our findings. In many ways, the Titans will be the easiest to manipulate. Their singular goal is to impose structure upon everything they see. Show them a force that opposes their drive for order, and they will be consumed by their urge to eradicate it. Their pantheon, so seemingly united in purpose, is vulnerable to fracturing. This is an interesting one, because it sounds like, if this is a Dreadlord, that they're being used to manipulate the Titans. Now, when we look back into Chronicle, we can learn that the planet that Sargeras found, that was covered in old gods and darkness, and apparently had a Titan world soul within it, that was having like horrible nightmares. On that planet, there were Dreadlords that lived among the shadows and basked in the glory of the old gods. And it was these Dreadlords which Sargeras apparently interrogated. And you can... This is interesting to me because Sargeras is fucking huge, so I don't know how this interrogation took place, if it was via an avatar initially or how... I don't know how that works because Sargeras is literally bigger than planets. But he apparently interrogates them and is able to break them and get them to tell him what is with the old gods. And they basically are the ones that tell Sargeras, and they're the ones where this story of the Void Lords comes from, that the Void Lords created these old gods and launched them out into the cosmos, and they're trying to find a sleeping world soul, yada, yada, yada. They're trying to infect it, give rise to an unspeakably dark creature that could bring about the end of everything. Now, here's the thing, okay? If it's true that what it's talking about, show them a force that opposes their drive for order, so Sargeras and the old gods, and they will be consumed by their urge to eradicate it, right? Like eradicating, burning the universe in flames. If this is what it's talking about, then that means the demons, which Sargeras was allegedly, supposedly hunting and fighting against, manipulated him and he believed what they said. I have a really fucking hard time believing that. I guess I just have a really hard time believing that a god like Sargeras, the greatest military tactician in the history of the universe, and the most brazen and powerful warrior we've ever known, the champion of the Pantheon and protector of the Pantheon, was fooled by Dreadlords whom, presumably, because he had been hunting and fighting these demons, he wouldn't believe. He just believes what they said at face value. Here's the fucking problem. What about Pyromancer and the throne, Antorus, the burning throne? They are torturing him, and Pyromancer will not break. Pretty sinister beings, if you consider what they were doing, stripping away his flesh, but Pyromancer still would not break. So you're telling me Sargeras just broke several Nathrezim, not just one, who might be more susceptible to breaking and telling the truth if he were segregated, I suppose, and put by himself. He broke multiple Dreadlords. I don't know that I want to believe that. Especially because there's evidence in the game, via the Greenfire questline from the Mists of Pandaria with the Doom Lord, that actually he flat out says that before Sargeras freed the demons, that they were the hounds of the Titans, and were attuned to hunt down and police the use of arcane magic, and they were also attuned to instantly punish those who delved into the depths of sorcery and sacrificial magics, which is, according to this Doom Lord, considered the greatest violation of life. So lore as recent as Mists of Pandaria suggests that the demons were not actually being hunted by the Pantheon, but in fact worked for the Pantheon before they were imprisoned. So this whole concept that the Dreadlords fooled Sargeras is really one that I have a hard time. It's a hard pill to swallow for me. It doesn't make a lot of sense, but let's just say that that's what happened, and this is what it's talking about. So he is consumed by this urge to eradicate them. Their Pantheon, which Sargeras ended up not being a part of in the end, is so seemingly united in purpose, and it is vulnerable to fracturing. Now, I would say that they are seemingly united in purpose. I don't think that all of the Titans in the Titan Pantheon share the same goals. And I do find it interesting that they say that the Titans would be the easiest to manipulate because of this drive to create order, right? So anyway, quite a tangent on that one, but one that I really wanted to talk about. So this is apparently talking about the Pantheon. It is assumed that it's talking about manipulating Sargeras into going against the Pantheon. So we're going to have to roll with that, I suppose, because that is the most common interpretation of that. The next one's very interesting. The Void Lords all but welcome us with open arms. So this feeds into the idea that the Void Lords, who created the old gods, the Dreadlords are essentially in cahoots with them. In the Void Lords, it's not so much that they're like directly working together per se, but the Void Lords are like, yeah, sure, like whatever. They are so preoccupied with their 1,000 truths that they ignore the lies we sow in their midst. Now this is interesting. Ignore the lies we sow in their midst. Here's the thing. Everyone perceives that the Void tells half-truths, okay? I would say it does in a sense. I think everything that the Void tells you or can show you is actually true. Because the way that the Void works is that it shows you the infinite path that can get you through get you through time to ultimately reaching an endpoint that is most likely the perception of like the final destiny that we know from the light, right? Two things that kind of go together, the endpoint of light and the paths, the infinite truths of the Void. But I think people have it in their head this way because it's something that Blizzard has said, and it's annoying, and maybe I'm wrong. But it seems more like these 1,000 truths are there. It's like Schrodinger's cat. And if you're not familiar with this concept, it's kind of fucked up. But it's like if you take a cat and you put it in a box, and you take a decaying radioactive atom and you put it in there and you close the box and you lock it. Okay, this radioactive atom, this decaying atom, is going to kill this cat, right? But here's the concept: is that while the cat's in the box, until you open the box, the cat is alive and the cat is dead. It's not alive, but it's not dead. This is the paradox of it. The concept of Schrodinger's cat, I believe I'm illustrating that properly. That's the same way the Void works. So it's like, it's true, but it's also not true until we see it, right? You have all these paths, and one of them is true. Any of them could be true. But until it's proven true, it's also false. But it's also true, right? So that's why the Void thing is interesting. But they also say ignore the lies we sow in their very midst. Now, to do something in the midst of something is kind of like in the middle of it all. That could actually be suggesting that they are sowing lies about the Void Lords, perhaps with the old gods, in their midst. So it's not actually the Void Lords that are lying, and it's probably also not the old gods that are lying. I think the old gods are very truthful with us. But the Dreadlords that are sowing lies in the midst of the Void Lords, I believe we can leverage their vast reach to position them as a foil against our other rivals. So it's not actually the Void Lords that are seemingly intent on being the downfall, so to speak. It's actually more so the Dreadlords, presumably, using the Void Lords as kind of a pawn to defeat the other rivals. That is fucking fascinating, because that could kind of shit on the whole idea from Chronicle of the old gods coming from the Void Lords. Because if they're just lying and using what the Void Lords are in their vast reach to position them as a foil against, let's say, the Titans, then they could flat out be lying. Like they said, they ignore the lies we sow in their midst. We remain wary, though, since they are observant of multiple outcomes. It is conceivable they could anticipate our coming. Now that's an interesting fucking line. It is conceivable they could anticipate our coming. What does that mean? What does that mean? Our coming to what? In what? Oh, that's interesting. The thing is, they don't seem terribly interested, whoever wrote this, in defeating the Void Lords. They seem more concerned about, because the Void Lords can see the multiple outcomes of the future, it's conceivable they can anticipate what is to come. Oh, I fucking love that, because the old gods have amazing whispers that reference future events, things that will come, right? And people perceive this as half-truths, but I don't think they are. I think the old gods are really telling you the truth. I don't understand why we would perceive this idea of half-truths, but then when Bellular goes at it, when Taliesin goes at it, when I go at it, when Accolon goes at it, when all these people in the lore community go at it, a lot of times we take the whispers at face value. We take them as though they're a truth, although we tell ourselves and tell each other that they should be considered as half-truths, but we never treat it that way. See, I think the old gods are telling you a truth. But here it seems they're not so worried about the Void Lords foiling them, but maybe spoiling what is to come. Right? Like N'Zoth saying the veil wanes. His crown will open the way. Truth. The Lich King. The veil between life and death waning, and his crown opening the way. N'Zoth knew that Sylvanas was going to do what she did. It was in anticipation of what is to come. Oh my god, this is some of the sickest fucking... This is one of the sickest lore reveals we've had in a long time, dude. I love this stuff right here. Similar to the Titans, the Naaru and their keepers are singular in purpose. Their adherence to a linear path is an obvious shortcoming. They savor nothing more than being proved right. So if they believe they have converted one of us to their precious light, they will trust that agent implicitly. And there it is. Lothraxion. Hands down, converted as an agent of the light. If they believe they have converted one of us to their precious light, which means it may not be so true. They will trust that agent implicitly. I think I saw Skull Shorties say on Twitter that this is actually a 500 IQ play by the Dreadlords, because by doing this, they, by Lothraxion essentially recruiting the two heroes, Illyria and Turalyon, into the Army of the Light, they kind of separated them from potentially coming back to Azeroth as soon as they could have. And that could have actually been in an advantage of the Legion, right? Lothraxion basically pulled them away, but ultimately the Void had other plans for Illyria. I'm not sure if Lothraxion was aware of this. He could be, especially if the Dreadlords are in cahoots with the Void Lords. This could be some 600 billion IQ plays by the fucking Dreadlords. I love this shit. But Lothraxion did have some dialogue that was removed from the game in patch 7.3, where after you deleted, you fucking deleted Argus. After you defeated Argus, the Unmaker, Lothraxion, at the spoils of the Pantheon, or boon of the, bounty of the Pantheon chest where you got your loot, he had some dialogue, and he said, just because Sargeras is imprisoned doesn't mean that all the demons in the universe will just give up so easily. Not yet, anyway. And that makes me think, and then by the way, they removed that dialogue. They removed that. Makes me wonder what Lothraxion is hinting at there. Maybe the demons haven't given up. Maybe it's not over. Maybe this is the final chapter in the assault on Azeroth, and we don't even see what's coming. Because think about this. I know we're special, and I know we're the heroes, but the Legion has never lost. Never. Countless worlds, spanning an immeasurable distance in the cosmos, causing the downfall of a race as perfect, basically, as the Draenei, or the Eridar at the time. They don't lose. Ever. So keep that in mind. They will trust that agent implicitly. So that's the thing, is that the Legion wanted to dismantle the Army of the Light, and the Army of the Light wanted to dismantle the Legion, but the Army of the Light did not necessarily chase down and try to dismantle the Void, inherently. Oh, this next line is a fucking great one. Before we get to that, let me touch one more time on this. Similar to the Titans, the Naaru and their keepers are singular in purpose. I would assume to assert order. Now, the Naaru I can speak about for fucking ever. I do not like the Naaru. I see them as like batteries of like hope and light power that are drained through many different uses. Muru is a good example of that. The Naaru that had to be ejected from, I believe, the not the Zenadar. It could have been. Anyway, the big ass Draenei ship, they ejected one of the Naru from there, presumably because it had run out of power, because it was powering the ship and was ejected. There are batteries that run out. Don't like the Naru. They turn into void. Not good news. It's a linear path, and that's it. The Naru and their keepers are singular in purpose, and they will inevitably return to the void. As Xal'atath alludes to there, beloved brethren who have simply lost the true path, they will return to their masters in time. Now, and their keepers, I'm not sure what that means as far as a keeper above the Naru, or those who follow the Naru and help to keep them sustained, like the Eridar, perhaps, or the Draenei, as they're referred to now. That's an interesting one. Some people think it's referring to Elune. Whatever. I mean, we don't know enough about Elune. I'm not going to say Elune is the creator of the Naru based on a fucking theory by Khadgar. I'm sorry, it's not enough for me, so I'm not going to comment on that. Their adherence to a linear path is an obvious shortcoming. Except one of the Titans can see through time, so I'm not sure how that works. So, next one, the adherence to life. Those who serve life are the most insidious of opponents. Oh boy, you guys know how I feel about life in this game. Perhaps because their nature is so antithetical to our own. So the nature of the adherence of life is essentially, antithetical is like the direct opposite, like they're in direct opposition to whomever this is, perhaps the Dreadlords. And if the Dreadlords are serving death, or the Legion, it really doesn't matter. Their purpose is to infiltrate and deceive and break down from within and cause the inevitable destruction of entire civilizations. So, the adherents to life are a little bit different, I suppose, but it's interesting that they say the most insidious of opponents. And you guys know that I think that life, Aenar the Life Binder, being the goddess of life, has some ulterior motive going on here and is not united in purpose with the rest of the Titan Pantheon. They are seemingly united in purpose, but I don't believe that they are. And given that the Pantheon is supposed to, allegedly trying to, assert order, as mentioned here, and Aenar's presence among that does not seem to fit for me, because life is not orderly. Life is very chaotic. The only way, in my opinion, life could ever be orderly is if life dominated literally everything. Let's say a spore mound, for instance, consumes everything on Draenor, and then the only thing remaining is a single spore mound. That's a pretty orderly way for life to exist, because it quite literally has exerted its own order upon everything. Through chaos, order was achieved. So in a really fucked up, disgusting way, life can represent order, but it's in a very twisted way that should not exist, like an old god taking over an entire planet or something to that effect. The thing about this is, still, we have learned much from observing the link between their plane and Ardenweald. So something between the link of the Emerald Dream and Ardenweald, which I presume is the Rift of Aln. It's something they've been observing, and we have high confidence that our vulnerability has been identified. If I had to guess whom this is, I would assume it's Ysera, right? The vulnerability between the Dream and Ardenweald, and one of the most important characters we see returning in the Shadowlands, one who has been infected by the Nightmare, which was not something specifically aligned only to the Old Gods, but also the Legion, as Xavius was actually carrying all of this out as the Nightmare Lord. This is something that she fell prey to. She was a vulnerability. And what's hilarious is Xavius manipulated Tyrande perfectly to go and choose to seek out Malfurion and save him instead of Ysera. Funny thing, just to bring this all together, is that outside the Temple of Elune, the forces of the Nightmare are working with the Legion in Val'Sharah. I've pointed this out many times, but those motherfuckers were in cahoots. They're working together the whole time. And when you go to the Legion landing page, there's a page, I don't know if it exists anymore, but I'll throw the picture up on the screen. The description for Xavius, in his Nightmare Lord form, talks about how he wishes his greatest purpose is to vanquish all who oppose not N'Zoth, not the Old Gods, but the Burning Legion. So the conquest in Val'Sharah with the Nightmare Lord was something that was still part of the Legion's doing. Make no mistake, the Legion and the Nightmare, and the adherents to the Nightmare, certainly were working together. Now, this vulnerability, I think, would be Ysera, right? Our operative has already gained the trust of her target. So the operative in this case is a female, her target. They begin this statement by talking about adherence to life, which Ysera is a direct descendant of the goddess of life. Their nature is antithetical to their own. There's a link between that plane and Ardenweald, and they have confidence that they've identified a vulnerability. That is probably Ysera and something to do with the Rift of Aln, which was the source of the corruption that infected Ysera in the first place. Our operative at this point, Ysera, could be on the side, whether willingly or unwillingly, of the Dreadlords. Think about this. There's a whisper that comes from, I believe, Il'gynoth Corruption Reborn, where he says, the vassal of life disguises treachery. The vassal, the servant of life, disguises treachery. Beware the eyes of green. Now that can be taken as literal eyes of green or eyes of envy, which is something I attribute heavily to Aenar the Lifebinder, but I digress. Whomever this is, I think is the vulnerability. And the trust of her target, I don't know who the target is, but I assume it's the Winter Queen. I don't know. I would assume, given who Ysera is, she's got a pretty big name standing behind her when it comes to Ardenweald. And as previously discussed, our position within the plane of disorder is proceeding flawlessly. Consuming fell energy is not a pleasant process, but a necessary one. The deception you have architected will bear fruit in the ages to come. Okay, so this is where it kind of breaks down for me in a way that I'm not sure how to interpret this. As previously discussed, so this is not the first time they've contacted. The position within the plate of disorder, so that being the twisting nether, is proceeding flawlessly. That is where they want to be. Makes sense. It's a great place for them to be posted. Consuming fell energy is not a pleasant process, okay, but a necessary one. This could be written. So here's the thing. People think that their boss is the jailer. That's what people are going for here. The jailer, or maybe Sire Denathrius. I think Sire Denathrius is a little bit too low on the totem pole for something like the Dreadlords, personally. Okay, I think that they're probably sired by someone higher than that. But they exist within the realm of disorder, plane of disorder, which is the twisting nether. Consuming fell energy is not a pleasant process, okay? But it's one that is necessary. That sounds like something Sargeras would say. It's not necessarily always going to feel good, but it is necessary. We need to do it. It's required. The deception you have architected will bear fruit in the ages to come. There's deception going on. Now that could be that the Dreadlords are not actually normally demons, and the deception is that by consuming fell energy they appear to be demons, which is not fun for them, but is necessary to blend in with the rest of the Legion. That could be what it is. And this could link into the deception of Sargeras. Very possible. Position in the plane of disorder is proceeding flawlessly. It's going to plan. They wanted to be there on purpose. As ever, we shall serve as your unseen hand. So, Dreadlords, we will poison every host foolish enough to invite us into their midst. I remain, as always, your faithful servant. Here's where I want to kind of tie this together. Previously discussed, our position within the plane of disorder is proceeding flawlessly. Consuming fell energy is not a pleasant process, but a necessary one. The deception you have architected will bear fruit in the ages to come. To our most wondrous and resplendent master. You'll notice one thing about this. And this could depend upon when this was written, right? Because we don't know how time works in the Shadowlands. We don't have a great grasp on how time exactly works in the Twisting Nether. We don't know when this was written. Okay, but I have a feeling that it may have been long ago, but I don't know if it was so long ago that it happened before Sargeras created the Burning Legion. Because again, this manipulation of the Titans, this doesn't have to be referring to Sargeras. But I think the easy answer is that it is. I think that's the easy answer. But you notice in here, they never talk about bringing about the downfall of the Legion necessarily. They never talk, you know what I mean? They talk about the adherence of life. They talk about the Titans and the Naru. They talk about the Void Lords. They talk about a lot of these different things, but they never talk about defeating the Legion or bringing about the downfall. So it could be that the Dreadlords directly serve the Jailer, and that is a link between he and Sargeras, and that the Legion is working together with the Jailer, which is something that has been pretty widely discussed. Or this could actually be written to their resplendent master, because Sargeras is quite literally burning beautiful flame. That is resplendent. The jailer is not, unless something happened to him, of course, right? Which I think probably did. Wondrous and resplendent. The jailer is not. But beauty is in the eye of the beholder, so that is something to consider. This is amazing. This is one of the most exciting little tidbits of lore that I've seen in a long time. And there's different ways to interpret this, but that is how I interpret this. It's got to be Dreadlords, right? I mean, it has to be. Agents weaving themselves into the fabric, being the unseen hand. This is exciting. And I hope that you guys are excited about this as well, because this could be 60 chess, I guess, by the Dreadlords manipulating the entire cosmos, which I guess is a way to tie everything together. If it is speaking about their manipulation of Sargeras, I'm a little disappointed because I just like to believe that Sargeras is better than that. But then again, I kind of have a hard-on for Sargeras, so, you know, maybe I'm to blame. I'm guilty for that. I'm to blame for that. So yeah, that's it, guys. Wow, very, very fun. I will probably revisit this. I will probably revisit some of the Whispers of the Old Gods and see if any of them are more directly applicable to what's being said here. Could be a lot of fun. So if you guys enjoyed this video, hit that like button, and more importantly, hit the subscribe button. Please, dude. Please. Even if you never come back and watch my videos ever again, subscribe, help me get to 100,000. I would really appreciate it. Hey, huge shout out and a big thank you to my Patreons. Over here, you will have my top patrons who are $25 patrons. They are insane. They support me amazingly. Thank you guys so much. On the next page here, you'll have all of my $10 plus patrons who are also amazing. Thank you guys so much for all of your support. And to anybody who is on the entry level tiers, thank you guys as well. It really does give me a lot more motivation to make videos, and you help support me adding new things to the channel, new equipment and things like that. So thank you so much. I appreciate you guys for that. And yeah, couldn't do it without you. Guys, follow my Twitch, twitch.tv/Pyromancer. Follow my Twitter, twitter.com/PyromancerSarg, like S-A-R-G, like Sargeras, but not Sargeras. And then, of course, go check out my Patreon, patreon.com/Pyromancer. So with all those things being said, you guys, I appreciate you very much. Thank you so much for watching this video. Stay awesome, and until next time, I'll see you guys later. Peace!